When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
I had 17 years of history to tell that had never been told. You know, I've never told anyone that I worked on the Droid campaign. I never told anyone that I developed some of the campaigns involved with the first iPhone launch. I never told anyone I was in the room. And can you hear me now? I was written on the board and we expanded it and like turned it into something. And so none of those stories had ever been told. I had a lot of good meat on the bone.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast of Determined Society. I have with me today an iconic brand builder, an 8-figure entrepreneur, marketing influencer. He's one of the few remaining madmen. Ryan helped develop some of the most successful brands and ad campaigns of the last 20 years, including work with Verizon, Lexus, Google, and the NFL. And not to mention other global brands during his time on Madison Avenue. Ryan is now the founder of digital ad agency Radical and the host of the Radcast, a top 25 U.S. business podcast. Ryan Alford, man, welcome to the show, buddy.
Shawn, great to be on. We've been connected for a year or so here digitally. I'm pumped to be on the show and blessed that you asked me. Thanks for having me.
Dude, hell yeah, man. It was, for the audience there, we were sitting there talking prior and I was like, man, I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't ask you before, but it's one of those things that, I don't know how we connected, but we connected and it was just a really cool flowing, get to know each other, like a story here and there, pouring each other online. I'm like, dude, I got to have this guy on my show. So You're doing some big things, man. I love watching your clips. The thing that I love most about everything that you're doing is every single clip you put out, Ryan, has actual real value. It's not an ideal. It's not a platitude. It's like information. I'm like, holy shit, I don't even know if I'm smart enough to even understand what he's saying. It's amazing. So everything is really cool, man.
No, and I do. I mean, I've spent 5 years building my personal brand on top of kind of just the real life brand. And it's just been important to me to try to, not just be chest beady or like some of the old social stuff where you're just putting stuff out there. I try to be thoughtful with it and try to, just add value to people.
It's one of those things too. Like I started, because I'm really new on my journey, about a couple years, really the last year has been where I've gotten really consistent and putting out shows consistently and, coaching people and things like that in the business to business sales world. And, what I've noticed in the last 6 months is it's like, man, I really don't want to be what people want me to be. Like talk about all the things that are going right all the time, chest beating, as you would say. And I decided I would start calling myself on my own BS. And those are the posts. Those are the things that do really, really well for me. It's because they're relatable. And the thing that I love about you is you're super relatable. I love when you post about your wife and your family. That is something that not a lot of people in your, I guess, accomplishment level are doing. It's all about them. And I think it's a great thing, man. So
yeah, man, I want to be, like as real as I can be. And sometimes I feel like there's this veil that social media has. And I think some people hide behind it. And I try to bust through it. Even sometimes, like I joke with my wife, I feel like the most non-social social guy of all time because like you only see a glimpse of it, because like life's moving. I'm at practice. We got 4 boys under the age of 13 and going to practices and doing games and, coaching and all that. And like, I barely even scratched the surface with some of that stuff. And I want to be more transparent with it because I just think, I don't know, in today's society, we need more examples of everybody's family dynamic is different. So my family dynamic being, husband and wife with 4 boys is not what I'm saying everybody has to strive to. But I do think the reality of what comes with that, and it's okay to be in love with your wife. It's okay to have kids that are normal. And when I say normal, I mean, just being little boys, and doing normal little boy things and not growing up too fast. And I don't know, and trying to be an example for them, but not trying to be perfect, but just saying, hey, I'm a dad and here's my sons and my family. And, I don't know. I just think we need more examples of that.
I agree with you, man. That's one of the things that I've really prided myself on in the early stages is being super authentic to who I am.
Yeah.
You are on my account. You go through my stories. You see how much I post about my children, things with my wife. Like, yeah, there's some business stuff going on, but I try to keep it as real as possible because that's not who I am. It's something that I do, but who I am is my family. Who I am is my children. It's very busy, right? You have me beat. I only have 3 children. But only one's a boy, but my 2 girls, I think, account for like 5 kids.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like,
it's girls, and I'm like, okay.
Oh boy, dude. Let me tell you, man, having daughters, you can go from just being the most pissed off you've ever been in your life and just wanting to scream and run away. And then in 2 seconds later, you're holding him and you're like in tears. I love you so much, little girl. It's a different love.
Well, in mine is like, my wife, knows this. I have a show and I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on the.
Please do. Please. I
don't take pride in it, but I do have a potty mouth.
No, I'm like feeling you out here. I'm like, are we going to drop some fucks and shits? What are we going to do?
I'm like, and Nicole knows that about me. And so I'm not trying to make my kids grow up too fast, but I'm real with them. And so it's like this fine line when you're a father and you have little boys and like knowing the lines to push of like, okay, man, pick yourself up and fucking dust yourself off versus, not just being Mr. Tough Guy, but like, always that balance of finding real raw and, the right balance. And I think that's the stuff that I like try to be transparent about is because like, look, nobody has a fucking playbook. You do what you think's right and do what things wrong and you try to put it out there and, I don't know. I'm hoping, but I think for good, bad, or indifferent with my content, I don't take myself too seriously too. Like, my team and we have fun with our content. We put stuff out there. I'm not, I think I have a lot of advice to impart. I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of experience and I try to share that. But at the same time, I'm like not afraid to poke fun at myself or to laugh at some of life's moments.
Well, you guys do some funny ass content. You really do. I can't think of, there was this one that had me laughing my ass off. It was like a serious fucking thing. It was you can get a fucking Lamborghini. What was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like to go to space, like the metaverse.
Yes.
Yeah, like getting a Lambo in the metaverse or something. I think it was.
Yeah, it was something like that. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, we panned the whole, and the jury's still out, but we panned all the metaverse stuff and all the coins and the whole. Not because, again, the technology is the future, smart contracts and all that stuff, but all the coins and all that stuff and everybody getting on that bandwagon. I've just kind of seen these trends kind of come and go. And it was a great PR opportunity, but, you're starting to see that stuff kind of fade already, as far as where it goes.
It was definitely entertaining, but it shows like a dynamic side to you and your team. When you talk about, you guys like to have fun with your content. You don't take yourself too seriously. You poke fun at yourself, all of the above. But the thing that I take out of your content and that I encourage my audience to, watch you and follow you and consume your content is it's coming from a place of confidence because of the fact that it's been done in the real world. We've talked about the social media game, but let's talk a little bit about your resume. Google, the NFL, Verizon, Lexus. Brother, Talk to us a little bit about that journey. And then after that, the transition into building your own ad agency and having to build your own brand there.
Yeah, man. I'm a Southern kid growing up in South Carolina, went to Clemson, marketing major. I always knew about myself. Some people have a hard time that they have to go to school, try 3 careers. I didn't have to have that. I knew that I was a marketing, salesy kind of like idea guy. My parents were that way, very entrepreneuristic, not incredibly successful, but at least when I was growing up, they both lived comfortably and all that, but grew up in the lower middle class, didn't come from real money, but went straight into the ad agency business right out of school. And, I was always really confident, and in both always that fine line of confidence and arrogance. But it was really just confident because I've always been an idea guy. Like, you put me in a room, every company I've ever been at, when you want more ideas, you put Ryan in the room. Like, I'm an idea guy. Look, just like anything else, half of them probably suck, but there's gold in there because and so I rose incredibly quickly through the ad agency ranks because I knew how to build relationships with clients, especially well-paying clients. Mm-hmm. I saw the game, knew there was a relationship game and an idea game. And so rose through the ranks really quickly, opened a New York office for the first agency that I worked with, and worked primarily in the cell phone game of brands. So Verizon Wireless, worked on literally the first campaign, Can You Hear Me Now? One of the most recognizable campaigns in the history of advertising.
That shit's your fucking fault.
Let's just say I was part of the team that expanded it, that made it blow up, taking an idea and turning it into strategy and execution and everything else. So worked on that campaign, worked on almost every popular non-smartphone and smartphone launch. Because if you think about it, the history of smartphones and cell phones, you had the Motorola Razor. I worked on that campaign. One of the most iconic non-smartphone campaigns of all time. Yep. Developing both TV content, print, radio, out of home activations. Worked on the LG chocolate. There were like all these iconic kind of names, like before they were the Juke. There were all these phones that kind of came out. I worked on a million different brands: LG, Samsung, Motorola, Apple. First iPhone launch. Worked on that and developing campaign strategies for really activating these phones and these campaigns from a marketing perspective. And so worked on kind of the one phone that kicked Apple's ass for about a year, the Droid. We developed that campaign and the strategy for how to go at that, the anti-iPhone. And so worked on all these things in and out of the kind of wireless smartphone technology sector, and just really cut my teeth. I just, I stuck my nose out there. I was 28 years old, sitting in the boardroom with Verizon Wireless executives. And I'm like sitting there, and I wouldn't say they were asking me what to do, but they were pretty much putting my opinion up as, guiding them. Wow. And I just was always confident, always had ideas, and always stuck it out there. And it's something that's pushed me along. And I think obviously some of the ideas had to be good, or I probably wouldn't be sitting there. But I think there's something to be said for just being confident and landing in the right field. It really kind of drove me along. And I was just never afraid to ask what I wanted. That's why I got promoted a lot. That's why, I ended up in conference rooms that no 28-year-old, probably from small town South Carolina, always here's the first thing that always happened in the meetings with me. Who's this Southern kid, in the room?
Is he getting us coffee?
Yeah. Number one, why is he here? But always within 20 minutes, because I opened my mouth and would stick it out there and put ideas on the table. Not always perfect, but at least, confidence in those things. But I always saw the big picture, and it was kind of no different. Like at the ad agency when I first started, I wasn't the best junior account executive at my ad agency, but you know what? I understood how the agency made money. I understood that having client relationships at the highest level would push me as far as I wanted to go. I understood how dollars and cents were being transacted within the agency, and it pushed me along with knowing how to play the game and to put ideas on the table and kind of grow with that. And so that's really that was the lever for me. But then, ended up at the right places at the right time. We all get lucky. We all make our luck. We get lucky, those things. And spent a lot of time working on a lot of large brands. The first 10 years of my career in the ad game are, I'll put them up against anybody's with the brands and the opportunities and the things that we got to work with. Worked on the first agreement with the NFL and Verizon, one of the largest sponsorship agreements to date, $1 billion for the first app where you could watch literally the NFL games on your phone. That was with Verizon, between Verizon and the NFL. Worked on activations at every NFL stadium in the U.S. for bringing to life smartphones and different things. So traveled to the stadiums, Dallas Cowboys Stadium to all the way to New York. And so had some incredible experiences that first 10 to 15 years of my career.
Dude, that's amazing. Outside of the resume, that the one thing that sticks out to me is talking about you were always confident. You're in the room, you're at 28 years old, and within 10 minutes, everybody's going from who's this young Southern guy to, oh shit, he has some fucking ideas. What was it about you? Was it is it something in your childhood that gave you such awareness of the value that you can bring forward?
It's a really good question, Shawn. And I've been asked that before. And I will say this, my parents were the most hands-on, hands-off parents that you could have. What do I mean by that? They were at every game. They supported me, but they didn't give me everything. And they didn't make determinations for me. They gave me and guided me towards, playing team sports. I was great at basketball, played all the way up through college and was naturally athletic. So they pushed me towards, they let me kind of taste a lot of things, but never like forced me into things. I think it helped me develop confidence in finding what I liked while still feeling like I had support behind me. They did an incredible job, again, I don't know that anyone has a crystal ball and they knew what they had what they were creating or not creating. Yeah. But they really created this world where, I had a lot of friends that were forced to be the A student, forced to be the perfect swimmer or football player, or always that was always the pressure. I felt very little pressure from my parents to make any one decision. And I think what that allowed to do is become confident in making my own decisions. I mean, at times it also made me probably unprepared for some of the consequences, but they let me live through those things. And, it helps that you get into team sports. They say idle hands creates issues. I was always busy, always doing things. But I think kind of that natural guiding, but letting me be my own person allowed me to kind of develop that confidence. I think that's where a lot of it came from.
Now that's interesting. So my wife's officially not allowed to listen to this fucking show because this is like in a debate. Shawn, did you read the parenting book? And it's a joke. It's not a joke in our house. Sorry, baby. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. But allowing your children to have the autonomy to make the choices and be able to evaluate their consequences, right? So what I'm hearing is that hands-on, hands-off parenting allowed you to make decisions. And if it was a good decision or a bad decision, you were left to deal with that good return or the backlash and have to deal with it.
That's right. And then they would guide me and remind me, they did a good job of, it wasn't the Wild Wild West. Again, They were very hands-on, hands-off. My dad was in the military. I mean, he was in the Air Force. So but he didn't, and they provided structure and they set expectations, but they were realistic and they did let me kind of explore those things. And so, and I don't know if it's like nature or nurture, because some of that's what we're describing here is nurture. Mm-hmm. My nature has always been, I see the big picture and I can digest big problems and turn them into tiny little steps to solve them. or taking very complex things and making them simple. And I've always kind of understood a little bit of consumer behavior, and that's kind of the core of marketing. And so I think that's nature, DNA to a degree that's been expounded upon by experiences. But I think was always kind of naturally there. I kind of always look at something and go, I hear what you're saying, but I know what that really means in the big picture.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I really understand the parenting style, and and I don't misinterpret it because, just for instance, like the other day, and you'll get a chuckle out of this one. It was cold. So I tell my 9-year-old son, hey buddy, put your jacket on. It's cold. My wife's like, what? No, that's not what you tell him. You let him know. He's 9 years old. Hey, Bobby, it's 50 degrees outside. Why don't you go check the weather? He walks outside. Oh, mama, it's cold. Okay, what do you think? What do you think you should do? I should probably go get a jacket. And she goes, see, I go, why do I have to go through all that? It's just like, yo, dude, it's cold. Put your shit on, but she, to her point, and to, kind of how you were raised, it's like the autonomy to make decisions, because those small decisions are going to impact their other decisions when it's not just about the weather, right? We're not talking about weather here, people, right? But no, that's awesome, man. That gives me a lot of insight.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and
parents are sitting there in their cars, like pulling over, crying, like, I'm a fucking terrible parent, doing it wrong.
Oh, that's where there's this fine line of involvement and expectation. Like the expectations in my household were never unclear, right. And I'll say that with our kids, we have really good kids and they're all A students, but you know what? I have never once said, you better make all A's.
Yeah.
They just make A's, because I don't have to say that, because I set the expectations that we're all going to be the best versions of ourselves. And I don't have to say it that way. And so, but they see me working hard. They see me making, not at all times. I mean, daddy's not perfect. I'm fucking the most flawed person on the planet.
No, it's probably you're probably second to me, bro. You're like 1B. Don't worry, you're good.
But there's an unspoken expectation, and you sometimes you have to set the expectation. And I would say, so if I have we all have weaknesses. My weakness in life is that I assume that people strive to a certain expectation or a certain standard. And like operating business, my hardest challenge has been, not that I expect too much necessarily, but that I expect that that everybody knows how to get there, because I've always been really good about getting there, and knowing I see where we're going.
Yeah, so that's an Achilles. That's like your strongest gift, but also your Achilles, right?
It is.
Because it's like when you're guiding other people, you could look at me, you could have a 15-minute conversation with me and go, Shawn, you're a fucking idiot. This is so simple. And I'd be like, no, bro, I've been like, this is not my jam. This is not what I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, but that's a great thing. And I also have this little thing where I expect people to put in the work like I would, right? Like, it bothers me when they say, like, after a month, like, hey, I'm not making any sales at my new job, maybe I should just leave. Like, a month? Like, you don't even know where the fucking bathrooms are yet. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you still think you have to read off a brochure. Like, you're not ready to leave. Like, give me a break. So, like, I think that's a great point. But the other thing, like, that I'm hearing that is really cool is, the unspoken expectations, right? When you have unspoken expectations as a child, like you did, see, I didn't have that. I had, if you don't become a Major League Baseball player, you are fucked. Like, you don't have any skills. Like, my dad would say, like, hey, can you hand me a wrench? And I'd hand him a hammer. Like, you're an idiot. Like, it would be like the worst time in the garage. I'm like crying at like 10 years old because I don't know what tools are, right? And so it was the exact opposite, right? So as I'm growing up, and now we're getting to some, personal development, which is really cool because my audience loves that shit, is, whereas you, unspoken expectations just rise, right? Because you can see things clearly because the pressure's not there. That we all have our own internal pressure, right? We all put some pressure on ourselves. But for me and for a lot of other individuals, they grow up in households where it's, if you don't do this, you're not going to be anything. So there's a heavy amount of pressure and holding on too tightly, right? And we all know when that happens, we don't grow.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man.
It is.
That's a tough one. Have you ever struggled with that? Or is this always just been kind of like through conditioning and your parents' parenting style, you just kind of were able to relax and just work through everything?
It's funny. When I was back to the 27, 28, I was managing probably 15 people, as a 27-year-old. And when we do peer reviews, that was a big thing back in the day, like 360s, like reviewing one another. Yeah. And my people, they loved like that. I'd always get knocked because maybe I was too hands off. That'd be the knock. Mm-hmm. But the one thing they always said I was good at, very good under pressure. I never, for good, bad, or indifferent, I can put aside the pressure, whether it's $1 billion issue or a $5 issue. I'm just trying to problem solve. Yeah. And I'm not going to be like, I'm not saying it's like that every time, but it's like, but I can just get to the core of what we're trying to solve versus the drama of how big or small it might be.
And I love that. That's a gift, man. That's a true gift, and that had to have helped you going from, Madison Avenue, right, to where you're at now.
Yeah.
Right. And as we know, when someone like yourself or anybody starts on a new entrepreneurial journey, there's a lot of shit that hits you in the face. There's a lot of adversity, and there's a lot of moments where you're like, okay, time to put on our seatbelt. What has been one of the biggest challenges for you in the last 5 years in transitioning over to your own deal?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting. And I talked about this on some content I posted recently, that I had to humble myself to a degree because I had worked on the largest brands in the world and moved back to South Carolina, had a couple stints as a chief marketing officer, then started Radical, my own agency. And no matter how much experience I have and no matter how good I've been, Pepsi is not coming to the Ryan Alford agency of one. Like if they wanted me, they just hire me as their CMO, right. Like my agency, the agency has to build credibility. The agency has to build its own name. We have to build a team. We have to have capability. We have to have resource beyond just my own two hands and my brain. And so I had to be humbled in building our book of business. And look, I started from a better place than someone that hasn't done what I've done.
Right.
I certainly have the credibility to get in meetings and get business and to get kicked off because I had spent 17 years doing it for other people. Mm-hmm. And so that certainly helped me. And my first couple clients, but look, I mean, I was a startup like anybody else, no matter what I had done, no matter what was in my bank account, it didn't matter because we had to start from ground zero to a degree. Ground zero is probably a stretch, but the same thing, still ground zero from an economic standpoint. You're building a business, and look, no different for me or anyone else. Like that first year or two is like, well, let's say 95. I don't know what the number is. 90% of businesses fail. I mean, so we had to push through that, developing processes, systems, streams of revenue. Mm-hmm. And look, I didn't have all the answers to that. I was just an idea guy, a great marketer. And so I had to learn to become an entrepreneur, still learning to become, an entrepreneur or an owner, so to speak. And so, the biggest challenge is what any small business or medium business or whatever is, holding on and making it through those first couple of years. And then now it's transitioned into kind of what do we want to be when we grow up? Like
I like
I say
that.
that a lot. It's like, we've got a good core client base and we've got some specialization, but then channeling that towards what we're best at. And because you have to learn as a business, you think you know what you're going to be great at. You think you know where it's going to go, but then you have to let the chips fall and then determine, okay, this is where we need to guide more towards, what we need to push towards. But you don't know that until you've gone through it. And look, hiring and firing is hard, and managing people is hard, and like it's all those things. And I've had to surround myself with great operators, because my brain works in a certain way and I see the big picture, but then, guiding 25 people to it, is a whole other story. And so I can paint the vision. I'm a good vision person. But operating takes, another skill set. And so it's been a litany of things.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty awesome. I think, like you, people listening, I think when we look at social media and we see someone like yourself or, the big entrepreneurs, people say, wow, it must be nice.
Yeah.
I'm not that way. I don't think that way. But for the majority of people listening, I want you to really take a note here. He's literally saying the first 2 years were difficult. He had a brand, but his agency didn't have a brand. He's not landing Pepsi right now. If Pepsi wanted him, they just hire him as a CMO. So he's had his struggles. He's had his adversity. And the only way that Ryan knows how to overcome it is to be super productive and just take care of step 1, then step 2, then step 3. Now I got to ask you a question. If you were with Pepsi, do you think they would have done the fighter jet commercial?
Probably not, but I don't know.
Oh my God. That shit was funny. I always like to throw in a little humor, Ryan.
I love it.
Man, shit.
But
you
I will
have
say this. I mean, there's 3 things I did when I started the agency. So I'll give some good action for people here. So I did 3 things very intentionally, and there was no playbook. It didn't exist, but this was the Ryan's radical playbook. We call it the radical formula now, but literally I invested and started doing 3 things. Started the agency, started building a full service digital ad agency, which is radical. I started the podcast, the Radcast, and I started working on the Ryan Alford personal brand. Now, my credibility was there, but I had no social cred, very little social credibility 5 years ago. The masses or even the niche masses didn't know who I was. So I started on a journey of giving value, sharing my story on personal brand, like sharing everything, Instagram mainly, certainly LinkedIn, Facebook, but Instagram's been the biggest platform for me. And then started the Radcast and knew that I don't know if I was smart. Again, I see the big picture. Like I knew no one was going to listen. Like no one knows who you are. Like no one's listening those first 6 months, those first 20 episodes. Like you have 50 people, maybe total, like half of them's your family. Like I knew that, but I knew why I was doing it. I was doing it to stay fresh on knowledge in my industry. I was doing it to interview and build relationships, and I was doing it to build content that could be used on social media when broken up and parsed into pieces and videos and things like that. So I did it for that reason, not to have a famous show in 6 months because that's not reality, or to monetize in 6 months because that's not reality. So I did all of those 3 things at the same time. And then literally, if you put them on a plane, a trajectory, you'd see them with time, money, energy on one side, and revenue driven or popularity or, success on a plane. Literally the last 5 years, they're almost all 3 of equal, because my personal brand has grown and blown up. The podcast has become top 25 in the world in business and marketing, and Radical has grown at the rate with which I want it to. I don't want a 400-person agency, but it's sustainable in a successful agency. And they all feed one another. 80% of our leads come from for Radical come from my personal brand or the podcast. And I've never one time gone, hire us today.
Yeah, no.
You share perspective. I've built the personal brand. But I had 17 years of history to tell that had never been told. I've never told anyone that I worked on the Droid campaign. I never told anyone that I developed some of the campaigns involved with the first iPhone launch. I never told anyone I was in the room. And can you hear me now? I was written on the board and we expanded it and like turned it into something. And so none of those stories had ever been told. I had a lot of good meat on the bones, but again, there was nothing to work with. I had a lot of good clay that I'd worked, but I had that certainly gave me a leg up. But I tell people that because I eat my own dog food, as I like to say.
Yeah.
You build brand over time and sales overnight. We all want sales overnight, but you have to build brand over time. And again, it's been a 5-year journey for the podcast, my personal brand, and for Radical. And none of these things are there. Right. We hadn't. Right. Look, I have grand ambitions, but they're a lot further along than the average company. And I think we've done it in a way with which there wasn't a playbook for.
That's awesome, man. How was it? I know you said you had to humble yourself though, but what were those moments like? Because I think this is the nitty gritty of it, right? It's the feelings. It's the overall emotion of, okay, I'm not there anymore. I've got to do this here. So what are some of the thoughts that you had and how did you overcome maybe those not so bright thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. There's one thing before I answer that straight line, I'll give you like an indirect answer, Shawn. Cool. It's my sister and I are the same way. So I think it's an Alford gene. I don't know what it is, but the Alfords are very uniquely, we are not like dwellers. We do not dwell. We do not, we move on quickly. We don't hold a lot of mental value in possessions. There's some characteristics that my sister and I share that my father shares. My mom has some of them and my dad has them for sure. And it makes us really good at some things. It makes us weak in others. But we don't dwell. I don't dwell. Like I had misconceptions that, and it wasn't because I was some big shot. Like I almost start my own agency because I've worked on all these things. I mean, I was old enough and mature enough to know that it wasn't going to be easy.
Right.
But, having to, work and channel business that was, 1,000th of what I'd worked on before, my conception was that I would at least, or my misconception was that I thought I would be just walking into bigger doors, but I didn't dwell on it. I just adapted. I'm really good at adapting. I mean, that's another thing. And so pivoting really quickly to, okay, this is where we are. This is who we're dealing with. And I got excited about, you know what? The opportunity years, I'm going to, even if they don't realize it, these clients that are at this level that want to work with me and our agency are getting the insights, the guidance, and the strategies that some clients 100 times their size are paying 100 times the cost for. And so I got excited about over delivering.
Yeah.
And, and I still do. And that doesn't mean because my ideas are perfect or because I can help every company. Look, there's been some, we don't work with mom and pops and never really have necessarily, but we've worked with some small businesses where the thinking's been too big because they just can't get there. And it's not worked, it's been like, whoa, and not because every idea was, well, you need to run $100 million TV campaign. No, we scaled back, but, to answer that question, Shawn, it was just the nitty gritty is that you can't dwell on those things. You just have to adapt. And, the most like common denominators, I think, on successful entrepreneurs is risk tolerant, highly curious, and just don't get hung up on adapting from what their original vision is.
Dude, that's amazing. That's amazing because that right there for the listeners and even for myself, hearing that from somebody like you that I've been in contact with over a year and know your resume is like, shit, it's It's not having that emotional attachment to the possessions. It's not having the emotional attachment to the actual results or the perceived failure. It's like, okay, we knew this was going to be hard, right? And how I'm going to manage this is just by doing the work. I just, that was awesome, dude. Like that right there was, to me, that was a ton of value in the last 3 minutes that the audience could pick up and apply to their lives.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me offline, and I want to clarify, did you say you were launching something this week? Because I want to be able for you to talk about that.
Yeah, man. I've talked about kind of that playbook of the last 5 years for Radical. And it's less about, well, how to start an ad agency. It really applies to anyone. It's really grounded in what I call personal brand engineering, because building a personal brand has to be engineered. It's not done. It's not these 3 steps. Engineering is really almost like science, and it's art and science. And I've reversed, because like I said, there was no playbook for what, at least that I was aware of. Certainly there were gurus out there, and Gary Vee's been around and all this stuff saying personal brand and all that. Yeah. But not to the degree that what I've done the last 5 years, I've just made up, but I used a lot of the principles that I gathered. And from my experience of 17 years working with the largest brands in the world and understand marketing and consumer behavior, that helped me figure out some of these things. But I've reverse engineered what I've done the last 5 years for building a personal brand, developing a podcast, and really leveraging that could feed any business. Like, it doesn't matter if it's an ad agency, it doesn't matter what it is. And so I've reverse engineered exactly what I've done. I've filmed it all in very educational, entertaining ways. And so we have that course, and you can buy that at ryanalford.com. It's called the Radical Formula Personal Brand Engineering, and literally $99 for that program for what I've reverse engineered. And
wait, how many videos is it?
9 videos. It's over an hour worth of content, or actually might be 2 hours worth of teaching. But if you want to work one-to-one, that's where the added value comes in. If you want to get directly kind of in that one-to-one community, but I'm practically giving it away. And because I want to see people successful. And what I'm really trying to do is build a community of people that want to kind of feed one another. And so, I'm excited about it. It's launching this week. And yeah, man.
That's awesome, man. So what I'm hearing is, are you shifting towards, because you said you don't work with mom and pops, you work with, small businesses, but what it sounds like, you're starting to want to help somebody like me, right? Put content out there that say, okay, Shawn, this is how you reverse engineer building your brand, right? Yep. Because that's what I'm hearing. And I think that's so needed, because there's a lot of individuals like me that are just stumbling and falling and getting kicked in the dick and then getting back up, and it's constant, right? And there's a lot of people out there that aren't as determined as me, that aren't as resilient as me. Like, I don't get to quit, and I won't quit, right? So those people fall off when they might have something really great to give the world.
Yeah.
Right. So this is valuable. Obviously, you and I are going to talk offline about a whole bunch of shit, because I've already approached you with certain questions, and I think that's valuable, man. When you said $99, I about fell out of my damn chair.
Dude, I want to help as many. I want to make this attainable. And look, there's a +1 from there. That's to get access to all the content that I think's probably $100,000. Like, what I try to think of, knowing what I know now and knowing where we've gotten to with still a lot of runway to go. If you said, what would I pay if someone had taught me exactly what I'd done? And I'd probably write a $20,000 check without even blinking. Yeah. Like, if I could, but I want it attainable. And then I want to bring in enough people that we're helping a lot of people. But the +1 to that, and the more premium tier, is going to be getting in the one-to-one with me, where I can literally help people one-to-one with exact specific problems. And then the translation for them, and kind of getting into that hardcore heavy hitters, like movers and shakers community.
Absolutely, man. That's the biggest thing when someone's building a brand. Like, they need some type of lower ticket access to the individual like you, right?
Yep.
And then they have to understand there's going to be a bigger investment involved. I think, and I've already kind of got a feel for who you are as an individual, and I know your heart. You're going to be the type of individual like who. There's another individual out there like Amberly Lago, right? The people she brings into her community, and this is what I see you doing, and helping in one-on-one, like you're putting them in front of people. Like if they earn the right to be in a room, you're going to actually facilitate that and help them grow in their life.
Bingo.
That's a fucking mentor.
That's what I do. Like I'm a connector. I mean,
but you realize that,
but
you realize that's not what's going on out there, right?
I know exactly what's going on out there. Yeah. That's why I'm so pumped to get this out there, because I know that I'm real, and that I know that just the course alone has tremendous value. And if someone will pay $99 and do it, they will at worst be extremely, within a few, look at it as a 5-year process for me. Nothing happens. This isn't a 3-month get rich plan. This is a forever build your personal brand, because it pays to be known, and it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And I teach the principles of that. And if you'll do what's in this course, I know that you'll be successful. But at the end of the day, I'm not peddling. That doesn't make my table at night. Like what makes me the table is creating connections, adding value, and putting people in front of the right people at the right time. And, I have a very unique Rolodex.
So, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love it. And, we're getting down to the point where we have to land the plane, because it's been 45 minutes and I still want to be able to have a couple minutes with you afterwards. You've already discussed how my audience can best support you. And for those of you listening, don't worry. By the time you're listening to this, obviously the show's aired, and you can look in the show notes. His website's down there. Go to ryanalford.com, click the link, buy the $99 program, and just immerse yourself in that. Watch the 9 videos, watch it 3 different times, and then, reach out to him and chat with him on a more intimate one-on-one basis. But do me a favor, not too many of you do it, because my boy's going to have to work with me too. And I'm not going to allow him to put me on a wait list. So, since this is called the Determined Society podcast, man, I started this podcast because I woke up one day in the middle of a transition in my own mind, a reinvention. I was just like, man, I just want this. I want to wake up in a society where everybody's determined to go get their shit done. Whatever it is, whatever goal they want, they would achieve it. There's an action plan and a certain standard that you and I talked about, and they check those boxes every day with intention. Given your career, and we know the things that you've gone through, what more specifically makes you a part of the Determined Society?
Man, I think I think I've probably talked about it already, like accidentally. I think that's why I was like, I was like, Shawn, damn, you should have invited me a long time ago. It's like the perfect thing. No one's more determined than me. Yeah. Here's what I say. I am naturally driven and naturally determined to be my version of successful. And I'm not driven by anyone else's. I take inspiration from people, but I'm probably influenced less than 99% of people in actuality, because I have my own ticking clock of what makes Ryan happy and successful, and where those places start, and just a natural drive towards those things. But I think where I'd want a seat at that table is doing it in a way, and you said this, which I really appreciate, and I don't try to do this. I don't know if it's just the Southern kid in me or whatever, but like in a real way, in a, wow, holy shit. I mean, he's successful, but damn, he seems kind of down to earth. Is he really that down to earth? Like in a way that people can inspire to, that's not, no matter how many boats I have or cars or whatever, but it's in a way that's, I don't know. inspiring and reachable and attainable, because I can tell you this kid from easy South Carolina can do it. Anybody can do it. And it starts with determination, but it ends with being raw and real. And
Fucking love it, man. You're cut from the same cloth, dude. I think we might be related. I got all the bad genes, but you got the good genes. With that being said, man, what, I know you don't hold a lot of emotion around material things. So what is your ultimate definition of success?
I value free, like if you did one of those like tests, like those, and I've never really taken them, but other people have. So I've kind of cheated on theirs. People that I know they're like me. Freedom and time are important to me, which is why I was always going to eventually be an entrepreneur, is because I value my time. I value and my family, my wife and my kids, and being able to, I've owned my own company for 5 years. I've never missed a single game, a single practice of 4 boys. And I control my own time and what I can make and what I can do. And my success or non-success is driven by being comfortable enough that I can always guide that. And look, I'm a provider. So just like you said, I'm never not going to be able to provide or not want to provide. So thus I'm always going to be driven, and money's a necessary evil. I talk about those things all the time. I'm not apologetic about it. Now look, I've got nice things. I got a boat, but I have them because it's a great thing for our family to do. And we go out and the kids love it and all that. I don't do it because I need to pull up to the yacht club. It's so success to me is having the freedom and the ability to do what I want when I want to do it. And it's not because it's for selfish things. I think it's for good things, but I don't like my time being controlled.
That is my favorite definition of success. I do not like anybody controlling my time, my freedom. I want to be able to control it so I can leave as much room for my family as I possibly can. So, but we're going to land the plane here, brother, so we can hang out for a minute or two afterwards. But, I just appreciate you so much. And if there's anything I could ever do for you, all you got to do is just pick up the phone and ask. I'll share whatever you need to share. And I cannot wait to see how successful your new program, your new launch is, and continuing to get to know you much, much better. So thanks again for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you, Shawn. Anytime. And ditto. And so you look me up. I'm at Ryan Alford on all the platforms. Good follow.
Oh yeah,
blowing up over there.
Yeah, we're gonna light the show notes up with all the Ryan Alford shit. Even where he got that amazing sweater and that good haircut. Fucking that's gonna be on there too. So I appreciate you, my man, and you have a wonderful day. Until next time, guys. Peace.